Well, hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me this morning. Thanks for joining us on this new episode of the Localization Fireside Chat channel. And I'm honored and I'm excited, actually, to be with today, joined by, on our discussion this morning with Sandra Stepan. And Sandra and I, we've met like everybody else nowadays on LinkedIn. And we sort of had a conversation, and I got really excited about the topic of digital marketing and the impact of digital marketing on the localization business, A, and B, on how digital marketing needs or could be impacted by the localization industry. So before we dive in too far into the topic, and again, this is a fireside conversation, so we could switch topics in and on, and we can have the conversation as casual as we want to or serious as we want to. So I want to first ask Sandra to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about herself and where she is at. She's I don't want to take her thunder, but I was so impressed with her background, and I'd love, and that's why the conversation is happening today. So go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you. For the first time in a very long time, I am actually back in Canada. I know it's shocking to hear for some, but thank you. Thank you. It's been 14 cat years, like I told my cat.
Sorry, Sandra.
Years. So my name is Sandra Stepan. I am based in Kitchener, Ontario, and I haven't been here actually. Shockingly, I'm calling from here. I haven't been here in about 14 cat years, as I told my cat. I am an e-commerce expert and digital marketer. I started my e-commerce journey in 2016 when my now fiance was attending a mastermind in Bali. I joined him. And I saw that people are making money online. And I said, I got to do this. They were making money from, a location of villa surrounded by palm trees. And as much as I love my job, I came back to Canada and I said, I'm sorry, guys, I gotta do my own thing and go travel the world. Since then, we have started and scaled our own brands, a couple of them to 7 figures. We bootstrapped. We had a lot of successes, but a lot of failures as well. And along the timeline, I guess, we have also started our own marketing agency where we work with other e-commerce brands and online service businesses to help them scale by diversifying their traffic sources. Over the last 2 years, I had more than 40 check-ins in Airbnbs. We stayed in the Balkans, where our roots are from, in countries like Romania, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and Montenegro. And like I said, I am back in Canada. It's great to be here with family and kind of pick up where I left off a couple of years ago.
Well, welcome home. And, wow, 40 odd stays at Airbnb in 2 years. You are truly a digital nomad, that's for sure. And to build businesses while you're on the move, you're a great example for the rest of us and for those who aspires to be living under the palm trees while making some money and doing what they love to do, and especially in a connected world like this. There's no reason why anybody cannot work remotely if their job allows them to do, unless you're in construction, etc. You're in physically demanding jobs, then you can't do that. But if you are in a job where your job can come with you in terms of being digital, perfect opportunity for the new economy, I guess, for all of us. And thanks for being an example. I'm now I have aspiration to become like you at some point. So great to have you with us again. At the same time, I want to get our audience to understand a little bit about how digital marketing can help their businesses. If you're in the localization business, and as I'm not sure if I already told you, but localization business got many companies, small companies, mid-sized companies, and large organizations. And, altogether globally, I think there's like about 19,000 odd companies in this space. And most of them, like any other industry in the service industry, you've got, the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the business is concentrated at the top 20 companies, but you've got a whole bunch of businesses that they're smaller in size, that they form the entire localization industry. So from a digital marketing perspective, and especially if you're trying to market yourself and differentiate yourself out there, how do you see that? Like, what's your vision to this, and what's your solution? If I was a small company in the localization industry, how can I use your services, and how can your services help me?
Well, the world is more connected. So when you're looking at digital marketing, you're really opening up a whole repertoire of opportunities, and you can reach new audiences, and you can connect with new communities that you wouldn't otherwise be able to connect with. Although I'm Canadian, and I'm most familiar with the Canadian and the US business market, I have worked with companies all over the world, from South Africa, Israel, even Norway, and there really is no there are no limits when working with a company like ours when it comes to marketing online. So digital marketing is essentially just marketing online. If you have a business, whether you are a local business or an online business, you can use digital marketing to market your services, even at a local level or at an online level if you want to grow and expand to new markets.
So if I was a small localization company, let's say I am located in Madrid, and I have a small localization company, I don't know, 5-10 employees, etc. And I would like to do some digital marketing in my area. How would you what would be your recommendation for something like this? And I know first is to engage with a digital marketing agency. But what would be some of the ideas that immediately somebody can do to affect or to impact their local market in the region that they are in this case, let's say Madrid?
Yeah. So when it comes to digital marketing, you want to do quite similar things like you would do in your local marketing. So the first thing would be to really understand where you want to go, what your targets and goals are and aspirations, and look at some marketing strategies that will work for you. So depending on your business, you want to understand your target audience first and understand where they hang out, what they talk about, what gets them to, what makes them tick, and what moves the needle for them. There are a lot of services, a lot of areas that you can tap into. You don't have to do them all. For most businesses at a local level, when it comes to digital marketing, I would say that some sort of social media it's pretty much a pillar for digital marketing. Everybody is online now. Everybody is using social media one way or another, from the youngest, generation of early teens to the most seasoned generation of I have customers for one of our businesses in their 90s, and they talk to us on Facebook and they order from Facebook. So social media would be one of them. Probably some sort of a paid media like Google ads, Facebook ads, Bing, or whatever is, popular in your area, but usually Facebook and Google. And email marketing, it really doesn't matter that you're a local business, small business, big business. Email marketing allows you to sell and communicate to an audience at a very, very low cost. You control the message, you control the medium. Nobody can take away your space in inbox. Where you use a Facebook ad, for instance, Facebook, it can be a little bit finicky sometimes, and you gotta do a little bit of testing and play around with it. But when it comes to email marketing, you own, as an email marketing list, you own an asset that you control and can monetize. I would start there. There's a lot of other things you can do, like podcasts, for instance. You can also do, content marketing, YouTube, TikTok, very, very overseen by a lot of local businesses. But actually, traveling and not cooking for pretty much 2 years, I've been ordering in twice a day, and I did go to a lot of places that I found on TikTok, believe it or not, beautiful cafes and restaurants that were just, showing us what they're all about and what they have to offer.
So basically, you have to follow the audience, whatever the medium is that they're using, whatever the new communication trends, I guess.
Exactly.
That point. And then you reference TikTok and a few other tools, I guess, and advertisement on Google and a few other things. Also app advertisement. What do you think of app advertisement, in apps advertisement? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if your audience uses apps, then absolutely. I would say that app advertisement would definitely need to be one of those activities that you want to engage a digital marketer or marketing expert for. And it's a little bit harder to do on your own, versus if you are a business, you can kind of have the in-house activities towards social media and email marketing. It's a little bit easier. Yeah, that's just my take on it.
So in your expertise, based on, I know you deal with the because we talked a little bit about email marketing and email marketing. You're right. I mean, email marketing is direct, point A to point B. You own the message, you own intellectual property around that message. Nobody can, unless somebody forwards your email, you're not going to be on social media where people can grab that tone of the message and copy and replicate it. So it's a little bit more effective to do email marketing. If I was a small entrepreneur, and I'm not talking about the large one, because the large entrepreneurs or the large companies know how to do this, and they have departments in charge of it, etc. But for the small guys, for the small entrepreneurs, what would be the easiest way to get started on email marketing as an initiative in advertising their business or services?
The first thing you want to do would be to sign up with an email service provider. So in order to email, no matter where you are in the world and no matter what language you email in, you have to adhere by some local rules. So Europe is a little bit more strict when it comes to email marketing. North America is strict, but not nearly as strict as Europe, where they have laws against emailing and soliciting through emails. So what you want to do is you want to avoid being called a spammer. And spammers are not just, the princess calling you from I don't know where, because you inherited a big treasure underwater that the pirates have fished up for you. But you want to make sure that you're not soliciting people over email. So you want to use an email service provider like MailChimp, for instance. That one is a great all well-rounded email marketing platform for both local businesses, service businesses, e-commerce businesses. If you are a small store and you do mainly commerce or e-commerce, then I would suggest something like Klaviyo that's specifically designed for e-com. And you can also Google and search alternative. There's dozens of great providers out there. So you want to set up the infrastructure first, where you can collect emails and have consent to collect emails and consent to send emails. The next thing you want to do is collect emails. If you are a local business, one of the easiest ways to collect emails is at a checkout point. When someone is purchasing from you, you can say, hey, we have offers and news updates that we like to talk about once a week. Do you want to sign up for our newsletter? Give us your name and your email, and that's pretty much it. A lot of these apps allow you to do it. They integrate with your point of sale system, so you can actually just kind of punch it in. You don't have to write it out. Or you can also have like in-store apps and points apps where you have to sign up with email. So get an email service provider, put together the infrastructure, start collecting emails and get consent to collect emails, and then start emailing. When you email, you can email campaigns, which are like one-off emails that you send out, kind of like the newsletters that you always get. Or you can create flows where you set up automatic emails for different triggers. So when someone, for instance, purchases for the first time, or looks on your website, puts something in their basket in their cart, and they don't end up buying, can send automatic reminders for that. So most email service providers will have some sort of a template for these. You don't have to go crazy when you start. I would suggest just get started and do the fancy later, but get started with something simple, straightforward. Email service provider.
I was going to ask you about the message crafting. When you're doing the messaging, a lot of people focus a lot on, bells and whistles inside their message. I mean, I'm sure there's a pros and cons to everything, right? So wondering what would be, I'm glad you mentioned the messaging there. So what would be, your personal preference when it comes to messages? Simple, complicated, in the middle, and how do you go about crafting it?
Yeah, so just a side step to that, one of the most profitable emails we had for our current business was actually a plain text email. It did not have any logos. It just had one button.
I agree with you. Plain text emails are the best.
It was plain text, and it was from me to you. It wasn't from our company to a lot of people. It was from Sandra to Robin. So when it comes to email marketing, I would say go along with the voice of your brand. So some brands have more, I guess, like they do like the bells and whistles. They are more fancy. They like to use big words and be fancy. But I would say that's maybe that's the minority of businesses. For most businesses, straightforward email works the best, where you have from you to you approach. So talk to one person, always talk to one person, make your audience feel like you are there for them, you're communicating directly to them.
Yeah, it doesn't
Understand
want to
how
sound spammy, right? So
exactly,
not personal.
exactly, and understand how your audience communicates. What do they like to see? Do they like to see a story and then the sell, or do they just want to get down to business and see the sell and then the story? To give you an example, one of our brands is a hearing aid brand. So when we communicate through emails, we want a lot of our audience is a little bit on a more mature side. So we don't like to have the fancy buttons and the flashing and so on. Bigger text and simple colors. When when working with a business that is, a high end fashion brand, for instance, shoes or jewelry or hats, they like to see the colors, they like to see the models, they like to see what others are doing, because when you are selling fashion, you're selling fashion to people that are paying money to look great, so they want to see what others are doing. So they like the colors, they like the flashing and so on. So stay true to your brand, but if you're in doubt, go simple. Do not go fancy. Go simple. Have a very simple header that communicates the essence of your email. So whether it's a sale, a happy Valentine's Day, happy Mother's Day, have a simple header, and then just get down to it. Speak right as you would speak, and don't try to use overcomplicated words or very big words to not intimidate your audience, and then have buttons that take your audience directly to.
Those are the actionable items that you can have in your email. That's the hooks, right?
Yeah.
And for our business, for our business, like in the localization industry, we collect a lot of information. That's the nature of the industry. So, for instance, your customer name, their email address, when was the last time they've done a project with you, what topic it was. So there is a lot of customization and personalization you can introduce into the email, because that data is available, and you can make it sound like in a normal email, it may make it sound a lot more like it is personally dedicated to that individual. That allows you to either in our business, for instance, allow you to make sure that this customer hasn't forgotten about you as a vendor, so they can come back to you. They can be serving as a reminder. And the second thing is it gives them the opportunity that, they're staying in contact with me, although it is not it's not a consistent needed services. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like needed every once in a month, or maybe every 6 months you need translation services. So then it would become more of a reminder, and B, it allows them to, I heard a friend of mine, it requires some localization work, so I'm going to forward that email to. It allows you to expand the base a little bit.
Exactly. Email marketing is a great tool to stay top of mind. And as much as we want to make it a transactional piece where I'm sending out an email and I want to see how much money I'm making today, it is a great way to communicate with your audience. And like I said, the news feed, real estate is so expensive right now. If you create an ad or even an organic post on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, it's a battle. It's always a fight against your competitors. When you have an email marketing list, and you get the opportunity to communicate to your clients, your subscribers, your customers one-on-one without obstructions from your competitors. So great tool to stay top of mind. And it's a great way for you to show off your personality as a brand, to show off what you're all about, what makes you unique, what problems for that customer are you solving better than anyone else. And just back to the personalization, I wanted to make a note. When you start, make it simple. Simple is better than overcomplicated, but definitely use those personalization features, even if it's something as simple as someone's name, or when they purchased last, because you work in the language world, right? So nuances are very important when we communicate, even through email. So when you send someone an email saying, hey, buy this, versus, hey, buy this again, we know you liked it because you bought it 3 months ago. You have that data with an email marketing software. It's a subtle difference, but it's an impactful one.
That's right. It's so which leads me to the next personalization item, which we always talk about, not necessarily from an email perspective, but the topic is email marketing at this point. But it could be, the same thing can be applied to any piece of content that you put in front of your customer, to be honest. What do you think of the item that says, I can personalize your email to the language of your audience, to the preferred language of the audience, and you capture that? during when you capture your email addresses from customers, you can tell them, you can ask, what's your language preference? And if they check box whatever the language it is that they chose, then that email then they receive it in the language of preference. And there's many studies on this one, by the way. There's many statistics on it. Even though somebody can speak 4 or 5 languages, or 6 and 7, I've met people that speak 7 languages in Europe. So they do have a one preferred language. They're capable of communicating in other languages, but the preferred language is whatever that language it is at that time. So when there's a lot of studies that shows that if you communicate in the language of choice of your customers, you improve your revenue, you improve your end results, which is selling products, services, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've had this situation quite a couple of times working with Canadian businesses where people living in Quebec, they speak English very, very well, but it shows them that you care. It shows them that you respect them if they tick that box and say, yeah, I would prefer to receive emails in French, and you actually send them emails in French. It actually worked wonders for the brands we work with. So I completely agree with that.
Especially now, like there are some jurisdictions around the world, they have a language rules around, like I'm reminded by the Bill 96 for Quebec, for instance, that came online a year or two ago. Where there is some regulations around those communication in the preferred language of either the group, which is in this case the province, or the individual, if in the case where the individual deals with a specific language preferences. Now, which brings me to the next topic when it comes to digital marketing is accessibility, for instance, right? So for the impaired, we talk a lot about accessibility in how we put our messages in front of people, specifically like visually impaired, hearing impaired, etc. So have you come across that, and how were you able to solve it if you did?
Yeah, so actually one of our brands is a hearing aid company. So we live that. My partner is hard of hearing, and he's been hard of hearing since he was 5 years old. So we live in a world where my communication is a little bit different than most people's communication, because I know that if he's not looking at me, he can't read my lips. So I have to kind of like repeat myself again. So I've come across this many times over in our own business and businesses that we work with. One of the biggest pieces I would say that made a difference in communicating with our own audience of hearing impaired and individuals with hearing loss was letting them know that we understand their struggles. So I'm not going to be perfect as a hearing person. I'll use that term when I create emails, but when the emails also say that, hey, our co-founder also has a hearing loss, he understands what you go through. And it's not just hearing, it's missing out on conversations, is being in an airport and being a little bit lost because you can't hear the PA system, being in a busy restaurant and feeling like you're not part of the conversation because there's too much chatter. That has an implication that goes beyond language. It goes to an emotional, it appeals to emotions, right? Because that's the world someone lives in. So from a technical side of thing, I would say do whatever you can to adjust for your audience. So let's say that you are a brand or a business that comes from North America, and your primary language is English, and maybe you don't have the resources to translate in Spanish if you are selling in Spain, but there are so many apps that you can use to at least do the captions in Spanish, and people can read the captions. So do whatever you can to accommodate your audience. That's on the technical side of things. On the non-technical side of things, on the more, I will call them holistic side of things, show them that you care and show them that you understand. Hey, we may not always be able to do our best. We will do our best in terms of regulations, and law does specify you have to adjust for most people. But even if we can't do 100% of our best of what we wish we could do, we get you, and we're trying, and we are here to accommodate you any way you can. And I found that people appreciate that so much, whether it's, like I said, translating, at least having the captions, or having the the caption in the social media post, not even the closed caption, but the captions in the social media post where you translate from English to Spanish or French or whatever other language.
It's a very interesting topic, accessibility. It's especially when we moved pretty much during COVID, the entire world into a digital platforms, and the increase of use of the digital environments after the pandemic, or during and after the pandemic, has become more prevalent. This issue of accessibility has become more prevalent.
Yeah.
You see a lot of companies increasing the fonts on their websites to make it more visual.
Exactly.
You see that people are, for hearing impaired individuals, they're putting, if you're playing an audio or video files, there's a little bit more control over the increase of the audio now. So it's all good, and that's a segment of our society that sometimes needs to be addressed in a very pronounced way versus an afterthought. I think everything we do, it needs to be bundled in within from a content creation. I mean, it needs to be bundled in. Shifting gears a little bit, if you don't mind, Sandra, what's your thoughts and observations over the years in terms of, like, I'm a small entrepreneur, for instance. I'm just speaking on behalf of the small entrepreneurs. And I want to invest X amount of dollars in digital marketing. What has been your experience in terms of return on investment? So if I put $1, let's say as an example, in digital marketing, what would be my return on investment?
I get this question a lot, and I don't know if I can ever have a straightforward sentence answer, to be honest. Profitability means different things to different businesses. So I have met entrepreneurs that make 8 figures, and they said, look, if I invest $1 and I make $1.10, I'm happy, it's profit. I've also met businesses that do not want to engage in any sort of digital marketing activities if they don't make 3x, because it's not worth their time. So one thing I can say for sure is that it's extremely hard to grow and scale without spending some sort of money on some sort of marketing. Unfortunately, gone are the days when you could, use Instagram and Facebook at an organic, I'll call it, level, and make lots of sales. So what I would suggest is look at your numbers, understand your numbers, and understand what you want and what you need in terms of your profit margins. Do some benchmarking research and see what your competitors or your industry is typically seeing as a return, compare the two, and make a decision on what you want. With a lot of marketing online nowadays, again, depending on the industry, the reality is you can't be profitable on the front end. So building a sound infrastructure on the back end is equally, if not even more important than what you do on the front end of marketing. So especially with businesses that have a lower product costs, but a lot of repeat customers. So anything in food industry, cosmetics, even fashion, they will not make a lot of money on the front end, whether that's with Google Ads, Facebook Ads, YouTube, influencer, and so on. But if you capture their email, capture their phone number for text marketing, if you get them on your social media profiles, on your YouTube channel, on your Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and communicate with them over and over again, and communicate with them on all channels, then you'll win on the repeat business and increased average client value. It's really hard for me to say, put X dollars in and get X dollars out. It really depends on the industry. It depends on your expectations. It depends on where you are, right? When you're a smaller business and you're just starting out, your ROI will be a lot higher than when you are a bigger business, right? So you can scale in a linear fashion up to a certain point, and then you're going to plateau. That's where someone like myself come in, where we actually don't scale businesses by putting in more money in the same things they've been doing, but actually looking at diversifying their traffic sources so they can capture that extra revenue, and they can convert a little bit better with platforms that are not as popular, I call them, like Pinterest, for instance, that has 400 million active users a month versus Facebook that has 2 billion. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Never a straight answer to that question.
No, I know. I mean, it depends on many factors, right? So marketing and sales and revenue generation, there's multiple factors involved in this. But what we're trying to address is one topic today. But I'm sure there's a ton of other topics that we can dive into in separate episodes on this conversation. You bring up a very good conversation. Since we started, you bring up the conversation of multi-channel marketing. So there are some people that they under the belief that, oh, you know what, I've put a message on LinkedIn and, I didn't get any customers, and how come that didn't happen? So you and I've talked about this before, is that message needs to be across many platforms, many channels, and it has to be propagated across and people, if they're not already on those channels, one of the recommendations is, from me personally, is to tell these individuals or these companies, get on these channels.
Yes.
Get yourself on the variety of channels that are out there. And you mentioned TikTok and YouTube. And this is that's why I created this channel. Is we've had in the past in localization industry, a bit of a we don't have enough content being created regarding the localization industry. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start something that has a bit more conversations around visual conversation, put it on YouTube, engage in people conversation. And also I started the podcast on this channel. So basically, to make sure that the message is propagated, you need to be on every channel. So you cannot be selective and say, okay, I put some LinkedIn ads and hope for the best. That's one thing, but you need to maximize the opportunity. Am I right on this, or?
100%, 100%. So there are a few trends when it comes to marketing in 2023. One of them being, I'll call it hyper content distribution. So creating content in today's world is needed, because a few years ago, let's say 2015, 2016, it was a lot easier to just create an ad, put out an ad, and you would make sales or you get appointments. I remember the 2016, 2018 days of marketing, very, very different. People are a lot more selective right now with their time and with their attention. It's also a little bit harder, although we have hundreds of tools, thousands of tools to track and analyze our efforts, is a lot harder nowadays to track where exactly that one sale came from, because people are on different channels and they communicate on different channels differently, and they go on different channels to be educated and entertained differently. Now, also, content creation, in my opinion, has become easier. There's so many tools available, free tools and paid tools, that it really don't cost that much. It takes, I think there's like one software we use for video editing, and it has auto captions for like $15 a month. As a business, that's not a lot of money to spend. So content creation is a lot easier, and there's a lot more competition on these social channels, and you need to put out a lot more content than you used to put out before. Also, sale doesn't happen from the first interaction anymore. So you put out an ad, that's great. Someone will check you out, they will see your ad, but until they see it like 10 times, 12 times, they're not going to engage with you. So what you want to do is you want to be where your customers are, follow them around on social channels, online, whatever they hang out with, paid and organic methods. Doing that also gives you more opportunities for you to showcase your brand's personality, what you're all about, what makes you unique, what problems you solve for that customer and prospect. But also, I think one thing that businesses overlook sometimes is that reputation management, which is kind of like online PR. If you look up my name right now online, it's not just going to be my website that pops up. It's going to be all my social profiles. More, it's going to be a lot of partners that I work with, like you, for instance, that have high ranked blogs or YouTube channels that are featuring me in their YouTube channels. So I am actually, I'm ranking with my own name on my own channels, my own assets, but also on our partners' assets. So you want to be on as many places as possible, and that's going to increase your chances of converting, and it's going to bring your conversion costs down a little bit too.
This is very exciting, the conversation that we're having right now, because I know it's top of mind for many of my colleagues, for many of our audience on this channel, and the people that I've talked to day in, day out. The entire thing is around revenue generation, and revenue generation has been especially for, large companies and small companies. It's been a sort of like a nagging issue that it's not easily come about. It's not in terms of solution, right? So digital marketing is one. Sales, we'll be talking about sales in the future topics on this channel, which, takes over from where social media and digital marketing ends. Now you get into sales discussion. One question, I'm not sure if you have given it any in-depth thoughts. We hear a lot about GPT-3 and artificial intelligence, and How's that, do you think, in your world, that's going to impact your digital marketing in general, and specifically for your business? There's two ways. I mean, we're looking at it in our industry. Either you adopt it and you become a pioneer in this, or you let it roll over you, and then down the road you say, oh, I missed the boat. So
Yeah.
in your world, how do you see that?
It's here to stay. It's here to stay. So if you are afraid of it or a little bit anxious about it, that's quite normal. I know that I had a lot of conversations with marketers and especially copywriters that said, oh my God, it's here to take my job. It is a machine. It is a tool. You are a human, and a human will never, in my opinion, be replaced by a machine, in the sense that, I mean, it will automate and replace some of our tasks, but it'll never fully replace a human. So in my world of digital marketing, we've been talking about this actually quite a lot since it came out. We have Slack channels in our own internal team where we talk about it, and we make a joke that I don't think it's a joke at this point anymore, but prompt engineer is actually going to be a job title, where you just know how to prompt properly, right? You got to adopt it. So I will say that take the time to understand it, learn it, and adapt to the world. It makes our jobs a lot easier, right? So the way I explained to my team too was, look, like, you have a dishwasher at home, that doesn't mean that there's no chores. You still have chores in your kitchen. I have chores in my kitchen, even though I have a dishwasher, right? So
We
just
still need a repair guy to come in and fix the dishwasher, Sandra, right?
Exactly. So just because I have a dishwasher doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of stuff to do in my kitchen. So adapt and use it to your advantage. So
Of course.
one thing that I think will shift in the marketing world, and anyone that does marketing, doesn't have to be a marketer, will be learn how to be a strategist instead of putting your thoughts and efforts into manpower. So where I have seen ChatGPT work beautifully is on the tasks that don't require a lot of I'll call it thought and brain power, but that are automated and mechanical, that I was doing them mechanically anyway. And now I can use the machine to help me with that, or organize content and create content. And I can spend my time on the stuff that differentiates the human from the machine, which is being a strategist, understanding problems and figuring out solutions. I have more time now to have more conversations with my clients where we're looking at their goals, at their targets, what's worked, what hasn't worked over the last year, over the last 6 months, create new strategies, and any sort of little content that I could have, again, written mechanically, I can get ChatGPT to do, or organize content. Having said that, copywriting, ChatGPT is not at a point where it replaces very good copywriters, because it doesn't have human emotion, nuances, sense of humor that has to come from I will say from humans, right? So my goodness, I think we could have a whole conversation just about ChatGPT, but I would say, like, at the end of it, don't be afraid of it, adopt it. It is here to stay. That is the reality. And start thinking about how to become a strategist and how to solve problems. Don't get too wrapped up in platforms. To be honest, even before ChatGPT, when I was a little bit more of a novice in marketing, I was thinking, my goodness, like, there's so many platforms that are coming out, so many new updates to all of these platforms. I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up. And then I realized that my clients, the business that I work with, they don't care what platform I use. They don't care about TikTok or Pinterest. All they care about is, Sandra, can you help me get to my goals? And if I say Pinterest or TikTok, same thing to them. It really doesn't matter. So what I started thinking more about is, how do I identify problems quickly and early enough, and learn how to solve problems? That's going to pay my bills. It's not learning Instagram better than I learn Facebook and marketing myself as an Instagram expert. That's just the way I see it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be the same with ChatGPT and any other AI tool.
Absolutely. Automation is meant for that, automating what can be automated. Until such time, and I don't know, technology continues on improving to replicate an exact human emotions and human intelligence. It tends to think about intelligence as mechanical, as mathematical, as algorithms. So that can be replicated, but the emotional part of a human being until we're able to replicate that, we still need a human being to do. And let's face it, I mean, if we're talking about content, if we're talking about localization, if we're talking about in that space, content is growing every year for about 40% now. And in order for us to treat this content, it doesn't matter what treatment definition you use, either, turn it into a digital marketing pieces, or translate it, or take it to, object oriented and move it to another platform, etc. However you're treating, we need an army of people just to make sure that we're doing this. Unless we have some sort of an automation to support us, basically we're consuming content at a higher rate, and we're creating content at a higher rate. So yes, evidently, we got to have some sort of a tool or machine to allow us to either create it, treat it at a most basic level to put it in front of consumer.
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
So great to have a conversation with you about this topic. And before, I got a couple more before we adjourn here. So if some of my audience or some of our audience here wants to reach you, how do they reach you? I know I'll put your information, your contact information in a description of this video, but if you have any other ways of communicating with you, what would you say?
Sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn, actually. So if you go on LinkedIn and you search for Sandra Stepan, I am there. Our website, so snapadvantage.com, and email. I check my emails every day, all day, pretty much. Not quite all day, but I make sure that my inbox is as close to zero as possible. So that would be Sandra@snapadvantage.com.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate it. And any last, now that you've done we're coming to the end of our discussion here, what do you feel about this conversation today? How did you feel about this dialogue?
I love it. I loved it. I think there's so many pieces of this that we could have side turned on and have another conversation on all these different topics. The ChatGPT, the machine, I just wanted to add one note from traveling for the last 2 years. Actually, most of my friends are from former Yugoslavia. So actually, I have more friends from former Yugoslavia than I have Romanian friends. And growing up in Canada, I was able to learn a little bit of language and understand it and so on. But I came back after 2 years of being in the Balkans, and I have a different understanding of the language, not because I heard more words or more conversation, but because I lived there, because I went to concerts and I listened to an entire stadium sing to songs that united a bunch of countries that, for a while weren't united, where the singer literally stopped and everybody was singing in unison and living it, where we went to concerts of stars that used to sing 30, 40 years ago, and you had all these generations come together. So when it comes to a machine, it will never understand that. It will never understand that I'll call it je ne sais quoi, because I actually don't know what it is. It's some sort of an energy that unifies different groups and communities of people, whether those communities are geographically based or based on, hobbies and family and so on. Tradition, right? So I don't think machine could ever replace that. Could they replace word by word? Absolutely. But in my opinion, language and communication comes from so much more than translating word A for word B. It comes, like I said, from the music, the tales, the traditions, the people, the way someone says hi to you in one area of a country and the way the word they use in another area of the country is very different. It's those little nuances that mean so much. It doesn't seem like at the beginning, but it means so much. And I don't think that machine could ever replace that.
Correct. And that's what we talk about in our industry quite a bit. Machine plays a big role in the way we work. It's a tool in a process. It is not yet replaced the entire process. And personally, I can't see it, down the road, maybe. In the short term, I don't see it happening, because you still need the human in the middle. We call it a human in the middle. You still need a human in the middle for various reasons. To program the machine, to train the machine, or to work in conjunction to the machine, with the machine. So I really want to thank you for your time today. I hope you come back and we have another interesting topic to dive into.
I'd love to.
I'm sure there's our discussion today may have generated many other items that we probably need to dig deeper into. Thanks again for your time, Sandra. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being part of our our YouTube channel, the Localization Fireside Chat. We look forward to having you back on. And hopefully this episode today that we've recorded together, generate something positive for you. I'm sure it will generate something positive to our audience. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Arvin. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks.